Hi, everybody. It's your old pal Todd Dammit. Today's show is brought to you by Dirty Tequila, pineapple and cinnamon infused tequila. Let's get dirty. Today on the show, a very good friend of mine. We took him out on the road last year. His band is one of my favorite new hard rock bands out there, with a bunch of the Struts, Dirty Honey, Greta Van Fleet. Joyous Wolf is one of those brand new up and coming bands. This week, Nick Reese. Ain't that right, buddy? Yeah. There we go. Nick.
Hello, Mr. Todd. How are you?
I'm great. I'm happy to be talking to you. It's always nice to be talking to another human being.
Oh, I know, isn't it? Isn't it a trip?
I know, in this day and age of just whoever you're in the house with, that's sort of your bubble. Which, it could be worse. You could have like no bubble. Then that'd be terrible.
That would be significantly worse, I think.
Well, maybe. You'd probably be very creative if you were just absolutely 100% alone. Then you might find yourself writing more, reading more, being more creative. Who knows?
Befriending volleyballs.
Yes, exactly. A lot or a bunch. A soccer ball, a tennis ball.
Why stop at one ball?
Yeah, a golf ball. I just have an army of balls. That sounds wrong. So let's get back to, we met on the Living the Dream tour with Slash featuring Miles Kennedy and some conspirators, and you were out there.
Actually, we met even before then.
We did?
Yes, we met in at the Paramount Theater in New York. The year prior, in the fall of the previous year.
That's right.
Officially the first time we met.
So what refresh my memory on that. What was that all about? You guys were...
We played a one-off with you guys.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's how we ended up getting the okay to, they weren't terrible, we'll have them.
Yeah. Quite the opposite, actually. I think you guys were so refreshing. I mean, it's been an interesting time because it seemed like for a long time there that rock and roll, was sort of, I don't know, like was becoming more like a
novelty.
Yeah, or like jazz or something, where it was something that's kind of like, there's going to be guys who are always going to play jazz, and there will always be jazz enthusiasts. And I imagine maybe people kind of thought that rock and roll would become some sort of, oh, he's a rock enthusiast. They're great. They do like a throwback to like 60s, and 70s rock. And I'm kind of like, well, and I was always the one going like, that'll never happen. As much as hip hop and pop and other things come and go, people love loud rock and roll. And to see young guys like yourselves, loud guitars, big old drums, and a guy out front shouting, yelling, and dancing his ass off, that'll never get old.
Doesn't quite work the same way that like jazz and like a coffee club works,
Could you imagine?
So I can, because we have played in little coffee clubs.
Well, we all have, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it doesn't quite work.
Imagine like a rock revival type thing. Like it's an old, like you got to go down to this club. They do this thing, that old school music called rock and roll. They do that over there. And the guy smashes the guitar at the end and everything. It's great.
Yeah, it's great. I get the full experience of what people think rock and roll is, I don't know.
Which is the funniest thing, because you and I have talked about that before, what people think rock and roll is. Because I think you, outside of the group, you yourself could be doing a number of different music styles and still be...
For a second, what did you say?
Oh, did you lose me for a second?
Yeah.
There you go. I was going to say, you yourself are capable of being a front guy in multiple capacities. You could be doing pop, you could be doing R&B type thing because of your persona on stage. I think you could probably carry that just fine.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I like participating in different kinds of things because to me, rock and roll music is an amalgamation of things, anyways. So it's like I like jazz and I like the blues and I like R&B, old school R&B music and old country music and a little bit of everything, really. And everybody says that, but for me, it's much more like a standard in practice because there's just piles of music everywhere. Like I like Joy Division as much as I think Joy Division is as rock and roll as James Brown is rock and roll as uh, you know the Miles Davis is rock and roll. Freddie Mercury is rock and roll, or uh, or Young the Giant is rock and roll, or the it all it all to me it's all comes from the same place if there's some meaning to it or whatever.
Well, especially if you have a connection to it, because that's the biggest thing. And I think anybody who's sort of like, you kind of have to eat multiple different food groups in as far as creativity goes, and it sort of comes out in what you do. And I think your presentation on stage is so jarring to the just the unexpected audience, because you guys come out and even if they don't remember one note, they're going to remember, well, the lead singer was doing backflips and splits, and it was nuts, and it was kind of almost an R&B review in and of itself, with your dress style, your almost like a upscale kind of thing. You're not coming out there in board shorts and a baseball cap. You know what I mean? Like, there is some sort of thought put into the presentation, and I think that kind of
Yeah,
that's
I
always
I
been great.
I always liked the way that that Elvis and would do it and James Brown would do it and I just liked their and David Bowie, like
Hmm.
people who would go out there and everything was meticulous uh, and the details. I like the details. I like the little things that I like to grab onto with artists that I like. So I think that's just kind of me being like, well, I want every show to be a little different. I want what I'm wearing every night to be a little different because for me, a different outfit will make me be different.
Of
Will make
course.
me act different. A different pair of shoes makes you move different.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Like I like I like to look how I feel.
Totally.
When I was first, even when we were first getting out into the world a little bit, um, I wanted to have just a little bit of flash, a little bit of something that would separate me. And at the beginning, it was like more like earthy colors, and like I was wearing this military jacket. I just wanted, and because that's how I felt about it at the time. I was like, I'm going into a war here.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it felt for me. I'm like, because it was do or die for us. We're like, we need to impress.
Right.
There is no other alternative. We need to impress here. We
Yeah.
cannot afford to waste this opportunity. And that's kind of how we've always been. And as of more recent times, like when we went on tour with you guys and Deep Purple last year, like I changed a lot in the sense that I just was like, I'm tired of that. I'm tired of that. I guess persona
Right.
to a degree. I mean that whatever the clothing brought out, whatever. And I remember I was in New Orleans, and it was just like kind of looking around. We were all out, kind of looking for new threads or whatever, because we had been on the road for 5 or 6 months at that point, or something like
Right.
that. And this is right before we joined you guys. I remember there being this kind of like an epiphany of like, okay, now I know what I want to do. And I was in this Mardi Gras costume shop, and I saw these two jackets in there that I wore a lot the rest of the year, and they were much flashier than what I would usually wear, and a bit more um, I don't know. I was just drawn to it, and I tried them on, and they fit really well. And I was like, yeah, this is good. This is where I want to go. And ever since then, I've just kind of been just kind of growing off of that point, and I feel really good about it. Like we did the before everything went to shit in the beginning of the year. We did a couple of shows where I got to kind of show off my new look, so to speak, and
Right.
and it just felt really natural and it felt really good for me, which is all that
But
matters.
isn't that the kind of the beauty of, like, say, Bowie? And I mean, Bowie's sort of the obvious, and it's almost a little bit kind of an extreme example. Like,
Yeah,
you're supposed to like look radically different every time you come up.
yeah,
But more so, even like thinking about the Beatles, in like the under 10 years that they were really around, their look was constantly changing. And I think that that's sort of the beauty of as an artist, and styles change. You watched Freddie Mercury's hair get shorter and a mustache came in. And, when band's been around a long time, the
the
clothes
ballet
change.
outfits.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's like outfits change, the haircuts change. And that's, you're kind of allowed to do that, and I think that,
yeah,
I think it's weird when an artist comes out and 20 years later they're doing exactly the same thing. And unless you're ACDC, who had it kind of figured out, and I think that's kind of the beauty of what that group's all about. But I think for someone like yourself who's drawn to, presenting a show, without sort of it, taking away
yeah.
the depth of what that means, I think that, how you present yourself, how you're going to do this thing, you have creative lease to do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just about keeping it fresh for the audience and myself. I think one thing I just didn't like was just all of the the allusions to grunge music. And
Right.
it wasn't that I don't like grunge music because I love grunge bands. I love,
Sure.
like to the 10th degree. Boy, do I love grunge bands, but like I'm just not that.
Right.
I'm
Yep.
a guy. Some guy from California. Like I don't have any of this. I don't have that. I'm not.
Right.
I can't.
I find most of that stuff to be kind of reactionary anyway. Grunge is a
Yeah, but I knew that a lot of it was coming from like just things of like what I perceived like I needed to be like or what I needed to do, and uh, since then it's now more about what I want to do, and I really don't care if
No,
like I just do not care if people don't like the way that I dress or don't like the way that I look or whatever, and
you can't
because
care about that stuff. You can't care about any of
uh,
that. If you want to do this, generally, if you want to do anything in life, really, you can't really care what anybody thinks. But when it comes to putting yourself out there, your music, the way you look, everything like that, you really have to kind of be true to yourself. I always kind of
yeah,
think that if you like what you're doing, there's a good chance other people, not everybody maybe, but a lot of other people probably gonna like what you're doing too. So that's all that matters.
yeah, like even if like my bandmates don't necessarily love what my threads or whatever, it doesn't matter to me because it's like I have to go up there every night and do this, and then if I'm gonna do this, like I want to be as transparent
Sure.
as humanly possible. That's why I feel I like to connect with the audience in that way, and I feel like they get it when they see it. It's like because that is what I am.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
am that, and I feel completely natural. I feel because I want to represent how I look in here on
Right.
the outside, and that's kind of
Well,
it's been really
that's a very realized thing for a man of your age. How old are you now?
26 in less than 2 weeks.
God damn, dude. My daughters, just for everybody watching, are 25 and 27. So Nick could be my son. You like
Well,
that?
Todd, you look 27, so
I've had a lot of work done. I don't know. There's a lot of this. Actually, after we shoot this, it's sent off to like Industrial Light and Magic, and they CGI this.
oh yeah, really, and it's
They
like
just,
after you turn
yeah,
into the sun, it's like the Batman comics where it's just like Two-Face, like
absolutely, exactly. In reality, I look like Mr. Burns. It's a hell of a thing. But no, so yeah, so this is actually one of the most interesting things to talk to you about because a lot of the guys I talk to are around my age. We've been through multiple bands. We've been, there's all this. Our storylines are things of like, The
All this
struggle.
baggage.
Yeah, exactly. The struggle to get anywhere, finally getting somewhere, and then the struggle of falling out of that thing and getting back to some sort of thing. But the cool thing for you is, although I know you've been in a band or two before Joyous Wolf, for all intents and purposes, is basically what the world will refer to you as your first band because it's the first one anybody's aware of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So I'm assuming you grew up with really cool parents who listen to rock and roll music, first of all.
They listened to a lot of stuff. I would, like that was like a big part of when you realize when you go and hang out at other people's houses when you're a kid and whenever, and you realize that it's not as important to certain people as it is to yours, and we're very fanatical about it. We used to do this thing where we would sit in the backyard, and my parents loved to play like American standards. They play all Sinatra and Tony Bennett and all of that cast, that
which
era.
I think is also in your repertoire as well. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a road you went down someday.
I mean, I did all the way on that was fun. I mean, anyways, I was just saying though, is we would sit in the backyard and we got so hooked on this game that we would play where we had to guess the voice. Whenever the song would come on, we couldn't look at the title on the TV screen. We had to guess who it was just by listening to the voice. And we just learned how to identify everybody, me and my sister.
Cool.
And my dad was a rockabilly guy in the 80s, and he was a big Elvis fan.
What did he play? Did he play?
He was a singer too.
He was a singer. Okay, wow. Mm-hmm. There you go.
Yeah, one of those we almost did it stories, that you hear. Sure. A lot of those in my family, I was so close, and that's why I think my family really didn't want me to
right
pursue it because but the thing is I always had this thing in my mind, I'm like, just because one domino falls over doesn't necessarily mean the next one will.
Of course, yeah, but they must be thrilled that you're pursuing this as successfully as you are.
I mean, I think they're definitely something,
Yeah.
Still need to keep going, before they stop worrying about me,
Well, that's true. Yeah. I mean, it seems to be a generational thing to me because I find that, from my generation, at least when I was a kid, it seemed, well, and it's also regional. I grew up in a little town. The idea of being a musician and for a career, I may as well have said I was going to be a superhero. It doesn't make sense, but I think that, as people my age with, or whatever, raising teenagers or whatever, if I'm into rock and roll and I play music, it's very likely going to rub off on my kids. And the idea of being able to turn it into some sort of career is a distinct possibility. And I think that, as opposed to when rock and roll, rock and roll is not the best thing to pursue, the drugs and all that stuff, and I think that, when you kind of get a little older, you realize what I think I get from you guys. You guys seem to take it pretty seriously. You don't seem to be caught up in the whole
never
the silliness.
We our goal is very much more straightforward in the sense that we treat and that was kind of the thing I think that made us different. And if I could say that, and it's hard to say that, but there's one thing I think about sometimes, like there's so many bands in LA, that we were around, and we were lucky and fortunate enough to to go out and do something beyond Hollywood. Which was very happy and still am very happy about. What made us different, I think, is just from day one, we all sat down and we're like, we're like, this is like what we want to do, and this is how we want to do it. I mean, we just didn't really stray from that mindset. We changed a lot of things around it, but the goals are the same. It's like when we go up there, it's business, it's like, and that's something that rubbed a lot of people, especially locally and whatever, and other things a lot the wrong way, because we just took it like life or death. It was like, going into the Rose Bowl, like it was like, we're going to play, we're going to win the game, it's kind of
this is what we play for. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this is what we play for, boys,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
A lot of times it felt like that, especially when we were playing with Slash and Deep Purple and stuff. Every night it was just kind of like, all right, we're all here, we're all jiving, we're all ready to do this. Let's go get it, let's go. put on
and,
the best show we can. You know?
and that shows up from the first few seconds you guys hit the stage. I think it's pretty legitimate. You know what I mean? Like you're watching something that's real deal, which I think is important, especially to people at a Slash show, or a Deep Purple show. They're there to see the Conspirators and Slash, and they're there to see Deep Purple. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your position, getting to step up in front of those things, it's a great opportunity. But it can also be like just jumping into I don't know, like a paper shredder or something. It's just kind of like, because the audiences are so, just do your thing for 20 to 30, 45 minutes and get the hell off the stage.
Yeah.
But if you actually can grab a bunch of people, which you guys did in my, I witnessed it firsthand. It definitely.
They were very receptive. I mean, we had lines at our merch table every night.
Absolutely.
We broke a lot of records for ourselves during that run.
Yeah.
Purple, but we were always used to that feeling anyways, the feeling of no one cares about you.
Right.
Like, so it's like that's kind of how that show developed, especially for me. It was like, okay, no one's looking at me right now. No one's looking at what we're doing. Like,
well,
even if our music is good, they're not looking. And
I don't think that's true at all. When
in the
the
past,
second in the past, sure. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about in the very beginning. Like,
okay.
I was like, even if our music is good, if they're not looking, they're not listening.
Were you not doing your thing in the beginning?
No,
okay.
Not
okay.
Not the same way. I mean, I was always like moving lethargically because I just can't sit still very well. But in the very beginning it was different, and it was but that thing every night being like, okay, if they're not looking, they're not listening, kind of thoughts, and it's like I need them to look in order to listen.
Sure. Yeah.
To what we're doing. So that really started like, okay. It was one of those things, again, little happy accidents where I just decided to wear a certain pair of slick shoes that were my dad's one night, and
okay.
As opposed to like my trainers or whatever, my Converse or whatever, and they made me slide a little bit.
Sure. Yeah.
And just you like I said, different pair of shoes makes you be different, and
it really does. Yeah.
And that sort of was the beginning of me being like, because I saw I got a reaction because I was kind of slipping and sliding around and doing, at the time it's pretty much just a bad James Brown impression.
Yeah, but I mean, now where does this come from? I got to ask. Like, I know you probably get dumb questions about your dance background, but I couldn't help but go like, no one just like decides one day, hey, I can do the splits. Hey, I can do backflips. I'm kind of like, I could never do the splits. I could never do any of these kind of things. And I thought if I could, I would have been doing them as well. But do you have, as a kid, is this some sort of background thing? Do you have any sort of, you're just talking about like, you just kind of like, the music goes on and you just react to the music. Is that what's going on?
It's weird. There's literally videos of me as a baby where music is playing in the background. I'm talking like an infant. I can't walk and I'm on the ground. And there's this Christmas song playing in the background, and it's like a very bouncy, like
yeah.
And little infant like home video me is just kind of like
rocking out,
like I'm moving along with it. And I didn't really think about that until recently when I went and, like, digitized all these home movies and whatever. And I thought that was very peculiar. But my mom's story is that there was some documentary on TV and they were showing the Tammy Show. And it was James Brown doing Night Train, and he was doing all the crazy things. And I was sitting there watching the television, and after it was over, I stood up and I started sliding around on the floor in my socks. So it was just something that I guess I could just do, and I was always really flexible. And I don't know, James Brown to me is the ultimate performer, so I guess I was just sort of emulating him. And then somewhere down the line, I just kind of was like, okay, I want to make this more me, and I just kind of kept adding things to it that I wanted to. And I remember we were going out on the road for the first time. We are going to go play our first festivals and whatnot. I was very much in the mindset, okay, I need something else. I need to do something else. And I was just like, I remember I was watching some guy. He was doing some just like crazy like Night at the Apollo thing,
Okay.
and it was just like some random internet wormhole, thing, and he did some kind of crazy like stuff on stage that I saw and was like, I could do that. Like I'm athletic. I'm flexible. I can do stuff. I should try to do stuff like this. Like I should try
Right.
to figure out something along the lines. Like he was doing like the cartwheel and whatever, and I was like, well, no, I can't do that. I want to be more like I want to be more daredevil about it, a bit more
Right.
film. It's like jumping off the stage and doing stuff, and
Yeah.
and
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, going into the crowd, splitting the crowd down the middle, and then doing backflips and the splits and stuff, and and running around the entire theater. Like when we opened for you guys for the first time at the Paramount, I got up, I climbed up onto the side, up on upper echelon of the stage, and I just ran around the entire venue. And because it's just like the school of like, okay, you have this one time. I want everyone in here to remember this.
Hmm.
And if they don't like it, they're gonna remember, and
Of course. Yeah.
that's kind of where all that stuff came in. But no, I've always been able to do that, and there was no dance lessons or
I'm
no.
not saying nothing about it seems like something that you rehearse. So you're kind of like, and 5, 6, 7, and like I don't expect anything like
Yeah.
that. But I just mean like because there is an Iggy Popism about it too, where it is kind of like devil may care, anything can happen kind of moment too, which I think is really important. Now, are you saying so? You started the band as a singer, just sort of doing your thing, and then you added this kind of thing. Like, how did the guys react to you just kind of suddenly doing all this stuff? Like, was that like?
I mean, I always kind of moved around a little bit. That like me moving around was a lot more spastic and again lethargic, Like,
Sure, yeah.
but because I just have all this energy and it's
Right.
knowing.
But there was no sort of heads up, like I might be doing some flips here. Like, watch out. It was just kind of
no,
like,
it just kind of happened. I mean, we were practicing one day, and I was practicing my like some of my things. We were gonna leave for tour in like a couple days, and I was just like, all right, I'll learn how to do a front flip.
right.
And I'll learn, and then I'll learn how to do a back handspring. I'll learn how to do all that stuff, and then and then I had it, and then I went out onto the road, and it just stuck. I don't know. It
just kind of happens, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, I was like, okay, we're going out and we're gonna be in front of all these people. Like, I need something else that's gonna be unexpected.
Sure.
And and again, 9.9.99999 times out of 10, I'm gonna be the only guy that day doing anything remotely like that. So it definitely worked out in my favor.
Well, that says a lot about your foresight of seeing a bigger picture in place, because I think a lot of the time, I mean, going back now, talking about like if you had to, like as a kid, what was school like? I mean, were you as ADD, kind of like, were you spinning around the classroom and jumping off desks, or what was going on?
No, I mean, I was definitely hyperactive. Like,
Sure.
and who wasn't though?
Of course, yeah.
But I mean, I was a lot more like in high school and like elementary school. It was lots of running around with your friends and whatever.
Of course, yeah. So, at what point do you find music? Is this? I mean, you've already found music just by listening to music. But when did you find like I want to play music or sing music? Did you pick up a guitar? Did you pick up piano?
Yeah, what happened was I got transferred to a different high school because I wanted to go play sports there.
This is where now?
It's Southern California.
In Orange County, right? You guys are Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to a school called Foothill, and then I went to another school that my dad actually went to called El Medina. And I went there to go play sports.
Cool. What kind of sports?
I was a basketball player.
Oh, there you go. Wow.
Yeah.
There's some athleticism, obviously. I didn't even think to ask you about actual proper sports.
That's kind of what my identity was growing up. Was just like I was the athletic one.
Who was your guy? Who was your team?
Oh, it's the frickin' Steve Nash and the 05, 06, Phoenix Suns. Those, that he was my hero.
Steve's Canadian.
He is Canadian. Yes, he is.
That's right.
I realize a lot of my favorite people are Canadian.
How do you like that? Gordon Lightfoot? Just
Yeah.
kidding.
They got Neil Young.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, there's a
You got
bunch. Yeah.
Steve Nash. Yeah.
But Steve is such an anomaly because he was a smaller or regular sized person playing, kicking
Yeah,
ass.
regular size human being. Great
Yeah,
guy. Probably second only to John Stockton.
yeah, totally.
Um, but was another guy. But yeah, like them and like I was a Celtics fan. I was never I was never on the LA wagon
That
because I
that's
wasn't.
interesting.
I lived in NorCal and then we moved down here. And I don't know, like I just never really felt like a SoCal
So
guy.
the Lakers never spoke to you. I mean, they've had some
It's
epic.
not that they didn't speak to me. Like we definitely
Yeah.
went and saw. We saw a game or two. Like we ever one. I saw Kobe Bryant break Baron Davis's ankles live. It was
Wow.
great seats at the Staples Center. I'll never forget that for the rest of my life,
I
especially
bet.
because he's no longer with us. But
Of course, yeah.
yeah.
It's been a lifelong dream of mine to see the Lakers play at the Staples Center. I still haven't done it. One of these days, I will do it.
Well, you definitely, as soon as you can go back, man, you definitely should.
Every
Great.
time it's the plan, but as you know, our schedules is always like there's always some
yeah.
rock and roll in the way or whatever, which is a good
Yeah.
problem to have. So,
I mean,
did you ever consider pursuing basketball professionally, or is that something that?
I mean, it was a dream when I was young because I didn't know that I would stop at 5'10".
Yeah, I
at the
suppose,
time,
right? Yeah.
all the doctors said, oh, he's going to be tall. I had tall people in my family, and they're like, oh yeah, he's going to be tall. And I
Well,
was
5'10" is not short. It's what they would refer to as average height.
I wasn't going to be playing college ball.
How tall is Steve Nash?
Steve Nash is probably 6'4".
Damn, he's like my height. So
I get you go out there and you realize that it's not that he's short, it's just that everyone's massive. Yeah.
By all intents and purposes, he is a tall man. Yeah, it just happens to be everybody else is a giant out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and he anyways, like I was really into ball and I went to go play ball over there and I didn't really know anyone. So I remember one of the first days I was there, some guy came up to me in class and was like, hey, my name is whatever. And he's like, do you're a new student. Do you know anyone here? And I was like, no, I don't. He's like, well, you're free to come hang out with me and my friends. We hang out inside the choir room at break. And I'm like, the choir room? And I'm like, okay, sure. And I go in there and I walk in and it's just every single dude in there has a guitar and they're all playing together. And I was like, oh, okay, it's cool. And they're like, hey, Nick, this is Nick, everybody meet. And he's like, and they're like, hey, Nick, can you play guitar? And I was like, no, I've never tried, and that was the beginning of like just being around them all the time. Like I always loved music and I was an avid listener of music and whatever, but I never, really had an opportunity. And they would they would give me let me play with it and they'd be like, this is how you do an A chord and this is how you do a D chord.
Sure.
And then the next thing I knew, I just kind of got hooked on it, and that was the beginning of that. And I was pretty late to the game. Like I didn't, start trying to be a musician until I was like 15 years old.
That's not that old. Slash started playing guitar at 15. A lot of people don't know that. Yeah. I mean, he didn't do anything else except play the guitar after he picked it up. But yeah.
That's kind of the same thing is I just started, I was an awful singer. I was the worst singer you'd ever hear. No, I'm telling you, I was absolutely dreadful. Like I was truly, truly bad to the point where my parents were just like, son, there's something called tone deafness. And it's perfectly fine,
But I think it's good for people to hear something like this because I think a lot of the time, you can have a passion for something. And of course you can have a passion for something like basketball and lose out to the height contest. But, the idea of sort of facing things like tone deafness or whatever, or, because when I was a kid, all I wanted to do was sing like Joe Strummer from The Clash. That's all I wanted to be. And it turned out when they made me get up to a microphone, it was kind of like, okay, now sing this and now sing that and now sing this. And they realized, well, Todd can sing pretty high. So do this. And then we're singing like these hard rock songs and that kind of thing. So I would have been happy just sort of singing down in that regular range, being a normal guy, but they kind of made me sing higher and higher and higher. But that said, if you've got the passion for it, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be Pavarotti or Freddie Mercury, as long as you can sell it and as long as you have something going on. It's funny because you really turned out to be a very strong vocalist with a great pitch and a great tone.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like this thing. I'll never forget. It was one day where I think my dad just knew that I wasn't gonna quit. Like, no matter how much beratement I would get from like my family or my sisters or friends or whatever telling me, what the fuck are you doing? You I just didn't care, and I just kept doing it. And I remember my dad's a singer, he was anyways.
Yeah, yeah.
And he just, he was in bands or whatever, and he's like, hey, you know what? You wanna learn to sing? You really wanna learn? And I was like, yeah, yes, And I remember it was this song by Carolina Liar called "Show Me What I'm Looking For,"
Okay.
and for that whole summer, like it was just him trying to get me like to open up that channel, the pathway, to be able to kind of get into a higher register and whatever, and also train. Funny enough, train was very important during this because my dad just chose these two bands to be like,
Interesting.
and yeah, so
You
Pat
mean the
Mock,
band Train? That dude?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
great singer. That guy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, he is a
yeah,
great singer,
yeah.
but yeah, I remember just learning like all of summer, like at the beginning of the summer, I could only sing like this. And by
Yeah.
the end of the summer, I could kind of sing like their songs. And then he showed me, he's like, "This is how you write a song," and he got me a pad of paper, and he wrote verse, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, bridge,
Cool.
chorus, and I was like, all right. So I just started writing songs and I was learning chords on guitar. And I remember right after that, I had my very first performance in front of people at my high school. I told you about earlier.
Is that
And
in a group or by yourself or
no,
what was it?
it was at this coffee, they had a thing called coffee night where everybody filled the auditorium and just hung out and people and the kids could go up and perform. And I went up there and I could not stand up. My legs were gelatin.
Right.
And I had this 12-string guitar that belonged to the choir teacher, and I didn't know the third chord quite yet, so I would stop at the third chord and just kind of sing it a cappella, and then come back. And I didn't know how to play a B7 yet, so
What song was it? What song?
I did "Come On Everybody" by Eddie Cochran.
Amazing. Well,
Yeah,
the B7 is a bitch. Just say it's still a bitch, that chord. Yeah.
yeah, but no, it was and I remember I got a crazy reaction just for doing it. Just it wasn't that it
Yeah,
was like
sure.
some
Yeah.
amazing thing, but I did that, and the crowd erupted, and I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Little taste of that serotonin level. Just
And
oh,
I
okay.
yeah, and I was for the first time in my life, I was like, yes,
So
yes.
even more so than the reaction you'd get from like playing basketball. That's sort of like
It
that was
was
like
different. In basketball, it was a team effort,
right.
and
That's
and
true.
in a band, it kind of is too.
Hmm.
And to be honest, I can actually kind of relate the two in a lot of ways because
Absolutely. Yeah, I do
everybody
too. Yeah.
has their position.
Yep.
Everybody has
Yep.
their duty, and
For
I
me,
guess
it's all hockey. But yeah, I know you see it more from basketball. Yeah, it's the
yeah.
same idea.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, same thing. There is a team element to
Yeah.
playing in a band, obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I remember like I remember getting like you know kudos and stuff from like audiences watching us play basketball and whatever. But it wasn't the same kind of thing for me because I remember like because basketball was like just something I kind of did,
Yeah.
and I do love, probably love it more now than I did when I played it, but
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
it, but yeah, it was like this thing of like, okay, no, that's whatever this is,
Yeah.
that's what I need, not what I
So
want. That's what
how
I
soon
need.
after that are you like getting into garages and making horrible racket with everybody else?
Weeks.
Oh, really? Like just
Probably, I think literally days after that, I answered an ad on Craigslist and joined my first like random punk band or whatever.
amazing.
Yeah, and girls like that kind of stuff, so I was just like doing whatever that was a kind
Of
of thing.
course.
So they'll like me, and I can do this fun thing.
Yeah.
And it was those are fun times. Those early.
That's always a giant perk. The idea of young person social skills. You just
Next to
suddenly
zero, especially for me, which was zero upon zero upon zero.
right.
I mean, it's funny. It's always like this thing where I've had a couple of people who knew me way back come to see it. The first time ever, like they come to see us play the Deep Purple tour or whatever. And I remember it was my friend from school, and she came up to me after the show, and she's like, "It's the weirdest thing. She's like, because you didn't talk to anyone. You know, you were just this, you know, you were totally by yourself all the time, and then there you are doing that. Like, it's so crazy. Like, and I'm like, I
But that's
guess
not unusual. I think a lot of, I'm sure Farouk Bulsara or whatever Freddie's real name, and a lot of these guys, Reginald Dwight, you know,
yeah,
when he became Elton John, these are like normal, quiet people who just sort of
yeah,
like there's a metamorphosis that happens in rock and roll all the time anyway. And I talked to Chris Jericho about this. The idea in wrestling is the same thing: showmanship and
yeah,
all that kind of stuff. The ability to be like we both talked about Ozzy Osbourne. I've toured with Ozzy Osbourne, and when you see Ozzy, he's Ozzy. He's like that kind of shuffling, and then he gets on stage and he's Ozzy Osbourne. He's like,
yeah,
and you just watch it happen, and it's I think that's to be expected that people know you as a quiet kid in school, and then like they see that and they go, whoa, 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 where'd this come from?
yeah.
It's just always been in there. So at this point, before I drag you into like 4 hours plus in this, but I'm always very curious of, because I talk to guys who have like been around 3 times as long as you. It's very easy to talk a long time, but with when I'm thinking to myself, he's only been around for 25 years. What the hell can we possibly talk about? But I am really fascinated by the idea of, when you find music and just the idea of where it becomes, you start playing with people and it turns into something more than just a hobby, and it becomes something that you actually do.
Yeah.
At what point, how old were you when you found the other guys? And I mean, obviously there's a bunch of bands you play in. There's probably punk rock bands, grungy bands, maybe some hard rock bands. And then you land with your guys, which I know sort of started with your guitar player. But you were still in a band when you met him? Is that what I understand?
Yeah, I met him at a Guitar Center acoustic room. We were both getting out of the noise explosion that was the main room.
Oh
Because it
God,
was at
yeah,
a mall, so it was just full of people just,
yeah,
going in there just purely to make noise, not buy anything.
I
Um,
know. I
and
think
yeah,
that I think that might be what hell will sound like.
yeah,
Yeah,
19 to 25 down-tuned guitars,
yeah, yeah,
playing
yeah,
20
yeah.
songs long. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. God
Uh,
love
but,
him.
yeah- but yeah, he actually lived really like not close to there, and he never went to that location, and just by
Oh,
chance.
really?
So it's just one of those moments
Kismet.
where it gets weirder every day. Every time we get a new thing, like again, like our songs on the radio now, like truly on the radio and like doing well and all this, and it's every time something like new it gets added onto this thing for us, it's like he and I both will just be like, man, it just makes that even stranger. It's like because our interaction was probably 10 to 15 minutes.
Fascinating. Yeah. Like if you had not both been in that Guitar Center in
Yeah,
that moment,
yeah. If
off
I'm
by
on,
like
if
off by
I,
like 10 minutes, it just changes your entire life.
I joked because I remember being like considering at the time, like I'm gonna go get a soft pretzel. Like like I could have easily walked out of there, went to Wetzel's Pretzel and missed him.
Missed it
Um,
altogether. Yeah.
yeah,
So when
think
you
about
guys
that.
sort of find each other, um, is there like a manifesto in mind? Is there an idea we want it to sound like this? We want to be this kind of band?
No, no. When I did the initial phone call, like to actually like call the first like Joyce Wolf, like what it would become Joyce Wolf
Hmm.
practice, it was like, well, what kind of music is it? I'll never forget he asked that, what kind of music is it? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's
Right.
because he and I had both been in like he had been in death metal bands, he had been in
Really?
alternative. Oh yeah, like
He's such a good guitar player. What's his name? I'm sorry, I'm drawing a
Blake.
blank. Blake. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, he's young too. How old is he?
he's younger than me. He's a year younger than me, so he's
Damn. Yeah,
about to turn 25 next year.
he's got like a real Jimmy Page thing going on. I
Oh no,
hate
he
to just.
just turned 25, so
Oh, so he's 25. Yeah, yeah.
he'll be
He's
26.
really talented. He's got a real, he's got a real old soul kind of guitar playing style. It's just,
Yeah,
there's something about you guys that seems so realized. Usually, when you find young bands, it's kind of like these guys, they've got something. But it's kind of like it's different. You guys you've got something, but you've already kind of realized it. Like it's sort of like it was like the meal was presented to me completely finished, completely, all the cutlery was put in place, everything, every dish was in that. And then seeing that, I was kind of like, this not only do they have something, it's really, not finished is not the right word, but it's very refined and very together. So I think,
yeah. we just kind of fell into it. That's kind of the thing that's weird is that we didn't have any pursuit of being like the band that we are. It was sort of we were all in a room, and I remember we had a guy playing bass for a little bit before Greg showed up, and then Greg does show up,
Yeah.
and Greg and Rob were friends for a long time, and they just jammed together, just bass and drums, like for like years, and just didn't join any bands really or anything, which
Wow.
is just this is the weird thing about that. You know, that's not a
Yeah.
very common story. Oh, let's just play bass and drums and just not do anything.
Exactly. Yeah. But it sure works out well when you're the rhythm section in a rock band.
What was that?
So
Sorry.
I said it works out really well when they end up becoming the rhythm section in a rock band for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we just kind of fell into it, and it became this thing, and then the next thing we know, we're talked about in magazines and whatever as being part of this new wave, and we're like, oh, we didn't get any memo. We didn't we didn't know.
Yeah.
We were just doing this and hoping for the best, you know, and
I
being
know it is a
scrappy.
fascinating thing, like as if you're like looking in and okay, what's going to be the cool thing? You know, okay, we got to be like a rock band, like listen to Led Zeppelin and whatever else because Greta Van Fleet and I don't know, Dirty Honey and bands like that. There's going to be this sort of revival of rock music, you know. But I think that there's. I mean, I'm sort of like, for me, it's like there's an obvious. There's nothing really obvious about you guys. You know what I mean? Like when I listen to you guys, I don't go, well, it sounds like Led Zeppelin. I can't say that. I think there's elements of Led Zeppelin there,
There's
but
elements of everything. And
of everything, yeah.
I think that's kind of what it separates us, I think, because now like there's just more and more new rock groups coming out every day and whatever. But every time that just like a new rock group comes out, they always say the same three or four bands, and it's funny
Right.
because they'll be like, for fans of Greta Van Fleet, The Struts, Dirty Honey, and Joyce, we're always there, and I think
Yeah.
that's really strange. It just
Hey,
shows you how much work we've put in, and how in the general lexicon of new rock, we're considered something, and
yeah.
it's like that's different and cool and sure whatever. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
um,
And the fact that, like you said, you didn't kind of have an eye out, looking out the side going, this is the cool thing. We got to do this. It's like, no,
yeah,
you were just doing it. And it just happened to
yeah,
be like, it sort of falls. I wouldn't say you sound like those bands you just mentioned, but I
yeah,
could see you touring with those bands and it not
yeah,
being a jarring, strange, like there's a rap
yeah.
rock band and then an old school rock band. It's like, no, it's like,
No.
it all works. But so how does this play out as far as, um, like writing songs, booking gigs, getting a deal? How quickly does that all kind of come into place?
3 years.
3 years. Okay.
I
So
think it's in the beginning of our third year, we were signed to Roadrunner.
amazing. So like,
Yeah.
and these are what, like, did you start off playing, what kind of gigs are you playing when you start playing? Yeah.
Our first gig is great, actually. This is a great story, and we have this on video. If they ever make a documentary about us, and for whatever reason, probably like worst band ever documentary. If they ever do that, it'll start with this. I will. If I have anything to say about it, it must start with this, because there's this clip that we have that a friend of ours took at the first gig. I call it the first Joyce Wolf gig because it's the first time Greg was in the band,
Okay.
and as Joyce Wolf really is. And there's this guy named Jeremy who I still know and connected to online, and he's announcing us, and we're at this open mic night that was taking place in like a photography studio,
Interesting.
one of those big, like all white walls where like they would take pictures of cars for ads and whatever.
Where is this?
This is in Santa Ana, California,
Okay. Yeah.
and so this is like the first gig with Greg, and the guy goes up there and he's like, ladies and gentlemen, they got some guys that are going to come up here and rock it. They're called Joyce Wolf. By the way, if you need to use the bathroom, it's, it's I just think that's the funniest thing. And I love it. And then again, we're in this echo chamber of a room, right? So we're literally about to just destroy everyone's ears, because
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
act a drum in there, it was like, you know.
Yeah, of course.
So,
Yeah.
and it's great because we're all awkward and we're just kind of standing there, and Blake just turns his volume pedal on, and his guitar starts feedbacking like, yay! And then Rob's kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4, and just we explode into this thing, and it was. I think that's one of the, like, we were playing stuff like that. We played anything. We would play upstairs at bars acoustically. We
Sure.
played gigs to nobody in Orange County.
Yeah.
There was barely nothing to play. And then, we kind of fell into this little rock community and played like little local festivals and whatever. And then we got into Hollywood and just hit the Viper Room a million times. And,
Sure.
we played the Whiskey. And then when you play enough times the Whiskey, the Viper's like, hey, come play at the Viper Room. We're like, really? Okay. And
Yeah,
you go and do
absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
And you play the Viper Room infinitesimally, infinitesimally forever, and until you want to die. And
Yeah.
then you finally get to play the Roxy, and then you play the Roxy a couple times,
Yeah.
and then finally you get a paid gig.
Totally. Totally.
There's a big club down in Fullerton, California called the Slide Bar, which we still go and play. It was actually the first time we ever sold out a show.
Wow.
Ourselves. The first time we ever sold out a Joyous Wolf show was actually this year, back in February.
Wow. Amazing.
It was the first time we'd ever done it here in SoCal. And
That's
it was
awesome.
Like, wow, that's cool.
That's so
all
awesome. Yeah.
Kind of paying off,
Totally. Yeah.
And it felt really good. And they were all there for us. And it was oh man, that's something, So
No, I know. It's a good reminder to everybody, because even like, to hear you say that, I can't imagine being 23 years old, getting signed, millions of dollars, everyone loves you. It just changes your entire perspective on how this game goes. And when the rest of us are out there,
millions of dollars.
Yeah, exactly. For the rest of us, it's kind of like, thousands is fine. But for the rest of us to kind of like, yeah, exactly. But for the rest of us, it's kind of like you incrementally sort of keep moving forward. And the fact that you guys have been moving forward. How long has the band been together officially now?
It'll be, let's see, Greg. I go officially by Greg.
I think that's a good
5 years, more than 5 years.
No, that's still a short.
6 years next May.
That's great. So I mean, honestly, it's like, the fact that you've kept the same 4 members for 6 years is great. So how many releases have you technically done now? Because I'm trying to keep track of this. Because
we have released an EP, our main EP, last year, beginning of 2019, and then we released our Mother Rebel EP, which is just a little like Mother Rebel showcase record.
Right.
And so just that so far, and then we released the Mississippi Queen and Slow Hands single, which was our first release, and now we're working on an album. So
that's amazing. And Jay Rustin is involved.
Yeah. You're familiar with Mr. J, also another Canadian. There you go.
Canadian. That's why we all know each other. It's like mafia, dude. He is one of my all-time favorite current producers. That's like out there right now. He's amazing. He's amazing.
He gave us our sound. Our original EP was good, and Howard Benson was amazing, and working with him, and he taught us a lot. But sonically, it just wasn't us.
Right.
But when we went and made this thing, I remember our A&R guy calls up. He's like, "Hey, look, there's this guy named Jay. He likes your music. He has this free studio time. You should go do it."
Yeah.
And we're like, "All right, fine, we'll do it." And it was just like we heard it back, and it wasn't even mixed. And he let us play live, which was the number one thing.
He's big on that. Yeah.
Yeah, you listen to our new single Odyssey. We played that completely live, and it just sounds exactly like we've always wanted to. He just gets us. He understands it. And the next song is coming out next month.
That song is dope. That Odyssey song is great.
Thank you. Yeah, he. I was actually just hanging out with him yesterday. We were doing some work with him a little bit.
I just had lunch with him a couple weeks ago when he was off to do some sort of Joyous Wolf, and I was like, "Oh, please say hi." But let's talk a little bit about Deep Purple for a second, because obviously there's a whole chapter where you came out with us and converted the masses, and anybody, like, it's funny because I brought up that I was going to be talking to you just kind of randomly on my social media, and like people were like, "Oh my God, those guys were so great when they opened for you guys," and I'm like, okay, that's enough about them. Did you like us? We were good, right?
Like you needed any help with that.
Yeah, I know. I'm just playing. But no, I mean, it was really great to see you guys and to in a lot of ways, because there's been a lot of like what's hilarious to me is prior to Greta Van Fleet's arrival. Well, I'm sorry to always go back to these guys, but it was sort of like rock and roll is dead. Just pack up all your guitar. And to us, we were always like, I don't know what you're talking about. We go to Australia and South America and Japan and Asia, and we go around the world 100 times and we play rock and roll and everybody shows up. So I don't know if what you're calling dead or not. And then to see all these young bands pop up and you guys really, like you say, in the 4 bands mentioned, I was knocked out. Like to just, but the difference is, and I think what separates you from the other guys is I mean, without taking away the credit from the other 3 guys, is your presentation is so much its own thing. You know what I mean? Like when if people were kind of like to see all 4 of those bands on one bill, they'd go, Joyous Wolf is the one where that guy was doing all that stuff. The guy that was basically dangerously almost going to hurt himself just to entertain us, you know?
I mean, that's pretty much the name of my game, is I'll tear myself up until I can't do it anymore. And a lot of that is, it comes down to, it's like, you know, it was the mentality of growing up as a sportsman, as you know, it's like, how bad do you want it? Who wants it more?
Exactly.
And that's kind of the thing, is like when I would go play in a game, it was like, I want everyone to know that I wanted it more. Even if I lost, I want everyone to know that I wanted it more.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's still the thing when I go on stage. It's just like, okay, I want it more than anyone else here, and I'm going to prove that. And I don't care who comes up here.
Absolutely.
You know, I don't care if it's Miles. I don't care if it's anyone.
No, you can't worry about it.
I mean, I don't care how intimidating that is.
Totally.
You know, I'm just going to go for it, and I'm going to lay it all out. And
you won't have to worry about any of that till you're my age, when you're like, what the hell did I do to myself? You wake up in the morning like, what the?
I mean, you know, like but it's the thing though, is like, no matter who it is, no matter what it is, you know.
No, I know.
You know, and to all of the credit of these other great performers, you know, like these other guys that I respect a lot.
Oh, of
like
course,
Mark,
yeah.
Like Mark and
Absolutely.
Luke and Josh and even, you know, like Ihab Omran from South of Eden, and these other guys, you know, they all have their own, you know, they all have their own thing, and regardless of anything, and they're, you know, they're good performers, and
of course, yeah.
But all I can ever do is do my thing.
Is do you. Exactly.
Yeah, and I guarantee you that I will do it harder than anyone.
I know you will. Yeah. So let's talk about Deep Purple really quickly, and then I'll cut you loose, because I don't want you to, you know, waste all your time with people my age.
I actually have to go. I'm sorry, but
go for it, man.
I just realized that I need to go do something. I'm sorry.
Yes, you just got to go. You're getting ready to give away a kidney to somebody to save their life. You probably should do that. Well, you know what? Part 2, baby. Part 2, we'll do it.
Let's do a part 2.
We always will. Anyway, it was really great talking to you, brother.
All right.
And we'll do it. I'm going to be keeping an eye on you guys. I can't wait to hear the new stuff.
Yeah.
Big love, playa.
Peace and love, man.
Bye-bye.